Welcome back to Between the Silos, where we talk about sales and marketing alignment and why so many companies struggle with it. Today, I'm joined by Tara Gronhovd. Tara is the founder of Align, where she helps leaders grow their capacity, build healthier teams, and scale businesses that last. She's also the creator of the Shift Leadership event and co-host of the Grounding and Growing podcast. Whether in the room or on the mic, Tara is known for sparking honest conversations that move leaders forward. Glad to have you.
I am thrilled to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I have been to your Shift event, and it is amazing. So you do great work.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was you were at the inaugural event.
Yes, I was.
And so you got to see our first swing, and it went amazing. So.
Yeah, well, it seemed like a home run. So, which teases nicely into the content. So a big part of that was talking about different strengths, and that is obviously something key to you. So we all know that most leaders have different strengths. Teams have different strengths, but identifying those and understanding how they complement one another, and then connecting them to business growth is kind of a difficult puzzle. I'm sure you see it all the time.
Yeah, it can be. And I think primarily because we tend to see the world through the filter of our own strengths, our own experience. And it's hard to imagine how people operate when they don't operate the way we do. And then you add the complexity of business and the complexity of teams, and it can be kind of a puzzle to unravel or put together, as you said.
It really is. And I think that was spot on. Like, even when you hire, sometimes it's hard to try to see the beauty and the value of like getting people who are not like you. But it's also really challenging working with them when they're not, because it's new, it's unfamiliar territory.
Yeah. We hired a little over a year ago, we hired a phenomenal executive assistant, Olivia. And one of the things I was excited about is all of the coaches on our team have it's a strength called individualization, which means we love to customize. And that's really hard when you're trying to grow and scale. Olivia has high consistency, and so she is constantly questioning our customization, and it is so good. But if I didn't know that, I might look at it as being difficult or resistant, right?
And could be very frustrating if you didn't know, if you weren't looking out for it.
Exactly. So instead, I understand, like, not only is that her strength, but we need it.
Yeah.
It helps us with one of our key blind spots, and we need that. So
valuable.
Yeah. Understanding those strengths can be a really powerful way to help you grow, to balance out those common blind spots, or those the blind spots that the leaders might have, and to make sure that you're still getting the things done that you need to get done.
Mm-hmm. Spot on. So I'm wondering, with that kind of flowing into that, if you have any like stories of things you've witnessed where departments, like, they maybe don't understand that, or they they talk over each other, or they don't understand different strengths of, like, have you seen it, and what do you do when you see that happening?
Yeah, I mean, we deal with this. I mean, this is part of the work that we do every day. But so, yes, human nature is that there's gonna be complications with communication, all of the time. And when we can see people through the lens of their strengths, communication gets easier. Yes, I have a lot of examples of times, probably the most common example where people miss each other in the workplace is when someone leads with maybe a lot of strategic thinking or influencing themes, and they like to think and dream and talk about possibilities. And then they're talking to someone who leads with maybe a lot of executing and relationship building. And as that person, their colleague who's talking about dreaming about these possibilities, the people with high executing relationship building are thinking, oh my gosh, how is this going to impact me? And what does this mean for my workload? And how on earth would we get that done? And they're stressing the whole time. And so you've got maybe someone who's a bit of a visionary or dreamer, and they're frustrated because they're getting pushback from their colleague, and their colleague is frustrated because this person feels like they're moving the mark or moving the goalpost, when really they're just missing each other because they are prioritizing different things in that moment.
And how often do you think people leave companies, leave jobs, because they just can't like see and appreciate that? They think they're so misaligned, and actually they're probably perfect for each other, but they just can't get over that communication hurdle?
I think it happens quite a bit. I think it leads to a lot of, honestly, I mean, you and I are both located in the Midwest of the US, right? So there's a lot of passive aggressiveness that happens. And so because people don't talk about these things, I think the first thing that happens is just we start working around each other instead of working with each other. And people, so we're misaligned. We don't seem to be able to like connect through communication. So I'm just going to work around you, or I'm not going to give you this thing. I'm not going to ask for your help even though this is your role, because I don't trust that that communication is going to go well. So I think first what happens is it breeds a lot of dysfunction within a team. Sometimes that can go on for a long time, but I do think sometimes it will bubble up into someone just feeling really misaligned and as if they don't fit, or they're so frustrated they can't figure out a way forward.
Yeah, I see that all of the time happening. And so like is there a trigger, and or is there like a tool that people can start to recognize this and work around it? Like what do you do in that situation versus like work around them? What other solutions are there?
Well, so we're referencing Strengths, Clifton Strengths, which is owned by Gallup, a international research company. It's a phenomenal assessment, and it's just a tool. So what I would say is, if you're looking for a way to better understand each other and better understand communication, Strengths is a great tool to grab and to leverage. And there's a lot of depth to it, and can be. I look at it as an accelerator. Like, it helps me quickly understand someone as opposed to taking months to understand someone or what's going on. So it's an accelerator for that. The other piece I would say that a lot of organizations don't slow down to do is, let's really define our cultural norms. What do we mean when someone doesn't fit? What do we really mean by someone's not getting it? And often it's the behavioral expectations under our core values and how we operate that have never been defined or articulated. And so our strengths can help us understand maybe why we're struggling with that behavioral expectation. But unless we've taken time to really get clear about what our expectations are, we tend to speak in kind of riddle or be really vague. And people continue to not understand what you mean, even though it's crystal clear to you because it's one of your core values or because it's one of your expectations. So I think it's a combination. Strengths can be a tool, but have you taken time to get clear for your organization about what the expectations are, about what those cultural norms truly are?
Yeah, that's a really great point. And sometimes I've seen this too, where you kind of have to wonder, is it a strengths difference and we're not appreciating that? Is it a cultural norms, or is it just a wrong fit? Because like that can all be true.
I mean, absolutely. So I think of a story a couple of years ago. I was working with a client, and I've been working with them for a while. So I knew their culture and those expectations pretty well. We had done some of that work. And sometimes our team will get hired to do kind of a third-party screening right before they onboard someone new, just to kind of check for fit. And this was the first time I had done that with this team. And I interviewed this person, and I knew they would not be a cultural fit. So I raised the flag, and I don't make these decisions, the client does, but I just said, here are my concerns. Here's what I would be watching for. And they went forward because they were so excited about this person. They liked them as a person, right? Within a month, they knew they made a mistake, and within 3 months, that person had to go. Because the cultural, like what they really needed and who they were as an organization, meant that they needed people to be highly relational. And this person was highly influential, which they wanted for sales, but he could not build trust with the team. And so he never was able to get traction.
That is so interesting. It was kind of one of those goosebumpy moments, right? Like, how do you do that? So obviously it's what you do all day, every day. And so that's what makes you incredibly good at that. But like, what are those things you are looking for when like, nope, this is your strengths and what you need and your cultural norms. It's like not going to work. Is there anything that people should be Is there any advice, I guess?
Yeah, I think, so in addition to getting clarity about who you are and being honest about it. So step one is, can we be honest about who we are as an organization and about what we truly expect and want and need? So sometimes the wrestle is we think we're this way, but actually how we behave and show up is different. And so sometimes you do need an outside perspective to point that out. And nothing will highlight it like a new person on the team.
Yes.
But I think the other piece is once you've articulated it, you have to, as a leader or as someone who's helping to form and shape your team, you have to be willing to look past likability to really look at requirements. Because we can like a lot of different people, and not everyone is for your team. Not everyone is meant to thrive within the environment that you have. And that is one way strengths can be helpful, is I can't tell by looking at someone's profile, if I've never met them, whether or not they'll be successful. The other piece of strengths that often gets misused is that we only talk about the positive side of the strength, but there are raw sides, there are blind spots, and is someone able to show up mature within their strengths is another element of that.
Do you do a lot of strengths in the interview process? Like, is that a standard when you're working with clients?
Yeah. So, the legal disclaimer is that strengths is not a legally approved assessment for hiring because of what I just said. There is no combination of strengths that predicts success in any given role. It has more to do with how that person's going to show up, what motivates that person to succeed, and whether or not they're going to be able to thrive within a culture. And so there are what I call strength spotting in the interview and hiring process. So that's what I did, like with the gentleman I was talking about before. He didn't take strengths ahead of time. I just was looking for certain flags and certain strengths that I knew would be a good fit. And when I didn't see those and instead saw like different types of behavior, it set off warning bells for me.
Yeah. So interesting. And then are there strengths that you see that are like typically for these kind of roles, you usually need these kind of strengths or not really?
Not necessarily. So I've worked with sales teams before. That's kind of the easiest one to grab, right? Because we have some stereotypes for sales. I've seen someone who is 100% relational, like they don't have any strategic thinking or influencing in their profile. And they are one of the best salespeople you'll ever meet because they're really good at nurturing the relationship, and the type of sales they're in requires that level of trust, right?
Yep.
That person might be less good at transactional sales because they care so much about that relationship. And I've met people who have, high influencing, and they're so interested in creating that quick connection that they can't get the depth needed for whatever the process is. So again, I think it's more thinking about what's underneath the requirements for the role and how do these strengths play in them, and how do you aim your strengths to be successful. So sometimes I can look at a profile and say, oh, I wonder about this. And it ends up being a clue for what to be curious about in the process, as opposed to being predictive.
I like that. We use different tools like that too. And it's the same. It's like, well, usually these types of roles are people, but it's not always. That's certainly, but it is like little breadcrumbs that you're like, I'm just going to get more curious on these types of things then.
Right. Something we're working on right now is, so a skill set that a lot of leaders need, but is hard to learn if you don't come by it naturally, is strategic thinking. So the other piece is just to think about how can you learn skills that don't come naturally to you, and you can learn different skills or practice different frameworks to help you get where you need to go. So I also don't see strengths as being limiting, like this is who I am and that's it. there's an opportunity to grow within your strengths and to build skills to become more effective.
Okay, interesting. So yeah, you do see those evolve and change over time.
Yeah, I don't your what motivates you likely doesn't, so your strengths profile is unlikely to change much over time. I was saying to you before before we recorded, you haven't taken it in like 20 years. I would retake it.
Okay.
If I were you. I recommend retaking it about every 7 to 10.
Okay.
Um but uh sometimes someone will say, I took it 3 years ago, but I had these major life changes and I'd really like to retake it. And we don't choose for people. I always say, you're welcome to retake it. And my guess is what's changed is you have matured within your strengths, but what motivates you is the same because that doesn't change much over time.
That's really insight.
So yes, you maybe how you're showing up and how you and maybe even your confidence in your ability to do certain things have shifted or changed dramatically, but you're probably still motivated by getting things done, for example.
Yeah.
But how you get them done maybe has shifted.
Evolve. I like the maturing within. That's a really interesting way to think about it too.
I think it's really important. There are a lot of different assessments out there. And what I like about strengths the most is because it measures motivator, there is an infinite amount of growth that can happen within your top strengths. And so it assumes that you're going to have a growth path. It assumes that you're going to evolve over time, as opposed to maybe some assessments that are measure behavior end up measuring more kind of a point in time.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And it's kind of like this is what it is without the assuming evolution of you.
Right.
And I like you said too, I like that it's a measure of motivation because that is sort of core to who you are.
Yeah. So the higher a strength is in your profile, the more neural connections you're going to have for that thing in your brain, and the higher the chemical rewards. That's literally where you're getting hits of serotonin, adrenaline. So it's not just, and that's why people can't just change their motivator. Like, so if you are a leader who motivates through fear, there are some people that's really effective with. I mean, unfortunately, because it's not actually long-term effective.
It's not actually long-term effective, yes.
But there are but so no matter what your normal style is for leadership, you're going to run into people who aren't motivated by it. Mm-hmm. And you can get frustrated that those people aren't. And, or you can acknowledge the fact that people are motivated differently and you have to adjust.
Right.
And find a different lever to pull to help them get on board.
Fascinating. So we covered a lot of ground.
Yes.
So my question was going to be to you, why isn't it easier? But I think we covered a lot of things. Is there any last nugget there of like said, we've covered a lot of track on how people communicate or don't, or see themselves and others. And so at its core, why is it so hard and frustrating? Why is communication among teams just such a challenge then?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is we tend to moralize our own way of thinking, our strengths, the things that come naturally to us. We see them as a given and we assume high value to those. And so do we then assume others must think, act, and be motivated in the same ways? And I hear things often when I'm debriefing strengths. Well, that just is the right thing to do. Why wouldn't everyone do that? I'm like, well, but that's the way your perspective is that's the right thing to do, right? Or they'll say, doesn't everyone do this? Like, this isn't a strength. Everyone does this. No, actually, not everyone does. It's normal to act or to think this way. They don't understand that it's only normal for them. So I think a lot of it has to do with both self-awareness and others' awareness and just understanding as many different humans there are in the world, there's that many different ways to look at something.
Are a lot of companies doing this? Are they becoming more aware of this and how to improve their team and communication through tools like this and people like you? Or is it still like most see that as sort of woo-woo or totally unaware of it?
Yeah, it's a great question. We tend to, I mean, the people who engage us, right? They tend to be people who value people in team dynamics and understand that those team dynamics and communication are could get in their way.
Okay.
Um, so what I would say is that there are most companies see this as, oh yeah, we did that at a team building once, right? And so they kind of look at it as more of a party trick.
Mhm. Well, that
It's interesting and it's fun, but where's the real value? It's when, so how it gets facilitated matters, but having a facilitator, having someone who can help you see, well, this might be why you keep running into this brick wall. This might be why there's such tension on this team. This might be why, as a leadership team, you can't seem to get traction. Uh, so when we can directly link, build, connect the dots with business outcomes, then I see eyes open, the lights go on, and they're like, "Oh, this is very helpful." And then you see people invest in it because one and done does not create change for anybody.
well,
But if you're going to start practicing it, use it as a common language and continue to integrate it into your work, it can be really powerful.
that was just such a powerful moment because I have run across people that they're just kind of like, well, this is how it is, and this is how we do it here, and this is how we behave, and um, but then from the outside, you can see, like I can see so many where it's like there is clear tension building, and there is clear lack of traction, like you said, and they're stuck, and you're like, if you could just figure out this piece,
Yeah.
the rest would move, but they don't. They just like they don't see business outcomes as part of this. They think they're totally different things happening. And they're like, just get on board with my way without understanding. If you could just communicate better and understand each other better, all of the rest will happen.
It's interesting because it's similar to marketing probably in that sometimes people are like, oh yeah, I want to do this one strategy for a week, right? And why didn't it yield results, Jen? Like what happened? And but like the strategy needs to be comprehensive and over time, and it needs to build on itself. So the companies that you're referring to where they're like it's my way or the highway, they can operate, they get to, right? It's kind of now Robbins let them, they get to operate that way. And it's painful. It's a lot more painful, and I feel for them because if they could understand that shifting to understand your people are your best asset and your greatest roadblock if you're not leveraging your people, um, you're just going to be frustrated. And business is hard enough without being frustrated with your people.
Right. And like just think about how much further you could go and how much faster you could get there if you understood that piece. Like you said, you can do that. And a lot of companies do that. And you grind through a lot of people and tension and all of that. And that's fine, but there is a better way.
Yeah, I mean, leaders in those organizations are high stressed, kind of miserable. The people are high stressed, and the ripple effect and impact on people's lives, I just don't feel like it's responsible or ethical. But I mean, I am also wired to think that way. But I'll say, like, the business outcomes, I mean, back to your original point there, the business outcomes matter. We don't do this work because it's fun. It is fun, but this work matters because it impacts businesses. We see teams become much more productive. We see stress levels go down, engagement and retention go up. We're able to track KPIs. I had a sales team who went through this, and they increased sales by 140% that year
Wow.
because they were able to communicate better internally. It didn't even really have to do with how they were dealing with customers, and it had to do with how they were operating.
Yeah, it is powerful work, and it does matter, and it does impact the business.
Yes, 100%. And I think that's the hard part is there are lots of variables that are operating. And so can we give you one measurement? No. But you can
Right.
pull benchmarks before and along the way. I just had a leader
And
say
there's a
to
benchmark
me,
to feeling, right? Like,
right,
does it feel better? That's valuable.
are we enjoying our work more?
Right.
I just had a leader say, we pay out 2 million in payroll, and this is a fraction of that, but we think we're 30% more productive because of this work.
Wow. That's incredible.
And I was like, and he's like, I can't, he said, I can pull 5 different measurements and kind of show you that. But he said, but that is he said, he's the visionary, but he said, that's my gut, is that we are at least 30% better than we were a year ago because of this particular work. And a lot of it, Jen, is yes, it's strengths, but it's helping to equip the leaders of how to leverage the strengths and coach and manage using strengths. And it helps them to be more grounded and more effective in their management and in their leadership. And that's where you really see long-term impact.
I can totally see the value of that. And I can see, like, it might be hard at first to think about paying for that. Like, oof, boy, how do I do this? How do I absorb that? I need to hire more people, or I need to do these things. But I can 100% see the value in that, especially equipping leaders. Like, as a leader, it's hard to help other leaders train and grow and do that work. Like, you kind of need them to do it, but they're not trained to do that.
Most leaders aren't trained, period.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, that's the bulk of our work. Strengths is a tool we use, like I said, as an accelerator, but a bulk of our work is equipping and helping leaders scale and grow. And most leaders don't have the support and resources they need to do that. But what's interesting is companies spend a lot of time on, let's say, strategic planning and goal setting.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first questions I typically ask is, how does your people and leadership strategy support this growth? And I usually get blank looks. I don't know what that means. And what it means is, you can't grow beyond the capacity of your leaders. And so if you aren't growing your leadership capacity, these growth strategies are going to end up really stressing the organization at best, if not failing at some point in the future.
Oh, I feel like I could talk for so much longer because there's so many questions I have. But we're going to do it 2.0 sometime if you're open to it, Sarah.
Okay.
There's so many questions and things that I see that I think that one you just talked about was really resonated with me too, as companies that are thinking about growth. Pivoting to our hot seat. Are you ready?
Good. I think so, yes.
Okay. Executing or influencing?
Influencing. I have one executing, and really that executing strength that I have is more about how to tell other people what to do.
Well, it's clear you do influence. That is clear as day. Staff meetings or one-on-ones?
Oh, gosh, both of them are critically important, but I would say one-on-ones because Gallup research shows that 15 minutes of meaningful conversation with a team member per week will like triple or quadruple their productiveness and their engagement. And so that one-on-one conversation can be really powerful. So one-on-ones.
That's how I pegged you. That's what I was thinking you were going to say. And favorite team building activity?
Oh, I have so many games and activities in my arsenal, so it kind of depends on the goal. Recently, I have this tool called a team writer that demonstrates communication challenges. That has been really fun. But if we're talking about strengths and going deeper, there's a exercise, and I can give it to our listening audience right now. If you just ask everyone to reflect and share this, when do you get the best of me? When do you get the worst of me? What can you count on me to do? And what do I need from you?
I love.
So if you have everyone reflect on those 4 questions and share those, that alone can be a game changer for a team.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This has been incredibly valuable. Appreciate all your insights. I think it's really going to be helpful for listeners, and I hope we get to do a 2.0.
I would love it. Thank you so much, Jen. I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you. And for all the listeners out there, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you always know when a new episode lands. Until then, don't forget, the best things to happen to your team will always happen between the silos.